Today we'll be learning how to crochet this easy, compact case for your basic crochet tools. This tutorial is suitable for complete beginners. All you will need is some yarn, a crochet hook, something to cut the yarn with, 4 stitch markers, and a spare button. So let's get started. We're going to first start by creating a slip knot. To start your slip knot, we're going to hold your yarn like this. Bring the tail end of your yarn to the back. In this loop that we have created, insert your fingers from the back. Then grab the tail end of your yarn. And you're just going to pull on each end until we have a loop. Grab your crochet hook and insert your hook into that loop. And we're going to tighten against our hook so that our yarn is nice and snug on our hook. Then, holding our yarn like this so it drapes over our index finger, we're going to create some chains. We're going to create 12 chains in a row. To create your chain, wrap your yarn around the hook, and then we're going to pull it through the loop like this. So if you look closer, you can see there are 2 arms of the V. This represents our first chain. Let's keep going. So again, wrap your yarn around the hook and pull through. This is our second chain. And again, wrap your yarn around the hook and pull through. And we can see 3 chains all in a row. From here, we're going to chain 9 more times so that we have 12 all together. So here are my 12 chains all together. You have just created your foundation chain, so well done. And we're going to start round 1. To start round 1, we're going to chain 1 extra. And ignoring that extra chain, we're going to insert our hook into the one after. So in that top loop of this chain, insert your hook. Then wrap your yarn around the hook and pull through. Once you've done that, there will be 2 loops on your hook. Again, wrap your yarn around and pull through 2 loops. So that was our single crochet. Once you've done that, I'm going to grab the stitch marker. And in those 2 arms of the V that we've just created, so not the loop around our hook, but this one here, we're going to insert your stitch marker. So our first single crochet has just been marked. Our chain here is a little bit stretched because we have our stitch in there. So in this space, we are going to put another single crochet in. So insert your hook into that loop, wrap your yarn around, and pull through. With these 2 loops, we're going to wrap your yarn around again and pull through both loops. So in our first stitch, we have put 2 single crochets in there. And from now on, we're going to put 1 single crochet in each loop. So let's do one together. Insert your hook into the next chain. Wrap your yarn around and pull through. Then wrap your yarn around again and pull through 2 loops. So we're going to keep going until the other end. And so I'll meet you at that far left-hand side. So I've just crocheted from here all the way to here now. And so you can see I have 1 more loop left until my knot at the very start. So like usual, I'm going to insert my hook into that loop and make my single crochet. But this time, in the same loop, I'm going to make 2 more single crochets. So what that looks like is I'm going to insert my hook in there, wrap your yarn around and pull through. So we have 2 loops left, wrap your yarn around and pull through. And that was our second single crochet. Let's do 1 more. Insert your hook and finish off your single crochet. So there are 3 single crochets in that very end loop. So what you're going to do now is turn your work, because we're always going to be working from right to left. And you can see that we have our little loops on the other side. This is the other side of the chains that we haven't been working in. So in the first line that you see, we're going to insert your hook into that loop. Then wrap your yarn around and pull through, and wrap your yarn around again and pull through both loops. So that is another single crochet. So again, we're just going to single crochet through all of these loops until we get to the start, and I'll show you how to finish off this round. You might be wondering, how do we know when to finish? So remember, our first stitch was marked by our stitch marker, which means the one after that, this chain would have been our extra chain that we did at the very start. And so that next lump after that, you can treat it like the stitch that our chain is coming out of, which means once your work looks a bit like this, you're ready to finish the round. To finish the round, we're going to insert our hook back into the first stitch that our stitch marker is inside. So like this, make sure it goes through both loops. Wrap your yarn around and pull through. And you can see there's 2 loops on our hook. So with this first loop, we're going to pull it through our second loop. Just like that. And to finish off, I'm going to take my stitch marker out. And we have just created our first round. To start round 2, we're going to chain 2. Then you can see this is our next stitch from our chains. That's where we're going to insert our hook. But for this stitch, the half double crochet, before you insert your hook into that stitch, we're going to wrap your yarn around the hook. Then insert your hook through both arms of that next stitch. Then wrap your yarn around and pull through. You'll see 3 loops on your hook. From there, we're going to wrap your yarn around again and pull through all 3 loops. And that was our first half double crochet. Grab your stitch marker and we're going to mark our stitch right where we created it. So it should look something like this. Then we can see the next stitch in line is this one here. We're going to put another half double crochet in there. So wrap your yarn around the hook. Insert your hook through both loops of that stitch. Wrap your yarn around again and pull through. Wrap your yarn around again and pull through all 3 loops remaining on your hook. Let's move on to the next one. Exact same thing. Wrap your yarn around the hook to begin. Insert your hook into that next stitch. Wrap your yarn around again and pull through. Then wrap your yarn around and pull through all 3 loops. We're going to continue all the way around. On this side, we're not going to do an increase like we did in the previous round. So just put 1 half double crochet in every single V that you see. And I'll meet you at the very end to show you what to do. So I've made my way across all to the other side, and you might be wondering, where do you stop? So this stitch with our stitch marker in it was our very first half double crochet. Remember at the start we chained 2, so these 2 chains here we're not going to stitch into. This next one is the one that our 2 chains are coming out of, so we don't want to crochet into that one either. And that means I have 1 last one remaining. So let's finish that off and put a half double crochet into these 2 loops. So to recap, I have my stitch marker here, my 2 chains here, and then 1 stitch where my 2 chains are coming out of. When I'm at this point, that tells me I'm ready to finish off my round. So to finish off the round, find your first stitch again, the one with the stitch marker in it. Insert your hook into the 2 arms of that stitch. Wrap your yarn around and pull through. With the first loop, we're going to pull it through the second loop. Just like this. We can take our stitch marker out now. And congratulations, we've just finished our second round. You can see when you look at it from the side, a bit of a height is forming. So we're just going to keep repeating round 2, basically until we have a height that we're happy with. As I mentioned, round 3 is exactly the same as round 2. We're just going to chain 2 again. And the next stitch in line is this one here. So let's put our half double crochet in there. And once you've done that, you can insert your stitch marker into that last stitch that we've created. So it looks something like this. Then you can see the next stitch is here. So wrap your yarn around and insert your hook into the next 2 loops. Wrap around again and pull through. And finish off your half double crochet. You want to go all the way around just like we've been doing. And I'll meet you again towards the end so you can be equally confident on how to finish off your round. So again, I've gone all the way around to the other side. And so my stitch with the stitch marker in it, that is our first half double crochet. Our next couple of chains are our 2 chains that we did at the start, and we don't want to crochet into that. And the next stitch in line, that's where our 2 chains are going to be poking out of, so we also don't want to crochet into that. So it looks like I've exhausted all my stitches to half double crochet into, so I'm ready to finish off this round. So I'll be inserting my hook into the stitch that my stitch marker is in. Wrap your yarn around and pull through, then pull through one more time. Let's take the stitch marker out. And that is the end of my round 3. So round 4 onwards is exactly the same as round 2 and 3. So we're just going to keep repeating until we have the height that we want. I ended up going until I finished round 22. So I'll meet you at the end of round 22. I've just finished round 22 and my pouch looks something like this. And what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to cut my yarn off. Make sure to leave a bit of a tail. From there, grab your hook and we're going to pull against the hook and tighten with your fingers. So here is the body of our pouch. Before we continue, I'm going to weave in my ends. So we're just going to bring our hook from the inside of our work and just bring our tail into the inside. I'm not going to worry too much about weaving this one in because it will be concealed by the inside of our work. For this side, I'm going to make sure it's nice and tight. Then we're just going to insert your hook into the next stitch. Bring the yarn tail to the other side, like this. And you can pull through with your hook or your fingers. And we're just going to keep repeating this on alternate sides. Once you've done a few of these, you can grab your scissors and just cut very close to your work. Then you can just pull on your work and it becomes very seamless. Now we're going to work on making the flap for the pouch. So what we're first going to do is find the 2 edge stitches on either side. You can eyeball this. Each side should be about 12 stitches away from each other if you've used the same width as I have. So I'm going to eyeball my first one. So that looks approximately on the edge, and I'm going to now count 12 stitches to the other side. And here are my 2 sides marked. So what you're going to do is find one of the stitch markers, grab your hook and insert your hook into the stitch with the stitch marker in it. Then grab your yarn and we're going to make a slip knot just like we did at the very start of this video. Now grab the hook, which should be attached to the rest of your work. Insert your slip knot to the hook and we're going to tighten it against the hook like so. Then, holding onto the rest of the yarn now, we're going to pull this loop through that stitch so that we have a loop hanging onto the hook. And we're going to chain 2. So 1, 2. I'm going to take my stitch marker out now. From here, I can see my next stitch is this one here. That's where I'm going to do a half double crochet, just like we've been doing. So wrap your yarn around, insert your hook into that next stitch, wrap your yarn around and pull through, then wrap your yarn around again and pull through all 3 loops. In that stitch that we just created, we're going to insert a stitch marker, just like this. And let's just continue all the way to the other side with our half double crochets. I'll meet you when we get to our next stitch marker. I've just finished my half double crochets all the way to the other side and I've reached my next stitch marker. So what I'm going to do is put 1 more half double crochet in there. Take your stitch marker out. We're just going to flip our work. So now we're going to be working from this side to the other side. So in order to do that, we're just going to chain 2. You can see this one is sort of popping out from our first stitch. So our next stitch will be the next one after. We're going to put a half double crochet into that next stitch. And in the stitch that we just created, we're going to put a stitch marker in there. Then half double crochet all the way to the other side. And where our last stitch marker is, we're just going to put 1 final half double crochet for our row. And turn your work. Now you can see the height of the flap is forming. So in a similar way, we're just going to keep building onto the flap row by row until we have 5 rows in total for the flap. We've already done 2, so you just have to do 3 more. I'll meet you after you finish this. Here's what the flap looks like after I've completed 5 rounds in total. So depending on the number of stitches that you have here, we're going to mark either the middle 3 or 4 of your stitches. So if you have an even number of stitches in your row, we're going to mark the middle 4. And if you have an odd number, we're going to mark the middle 3. Because I've had an even number of stitches in my row, I've marked the middle 4 stitches. So you can see my first one is here. I have 2 stitches in between, and my stitch marker is on the 4th stitch. And these 4 stitches are sitting in the middle of the width of the flap. Now we're just going to start off as we normally do. So chain 2. In the next stitch, we're going to put another half double crochet in, again just like we have been doing. Mark that last stitch with a stitch marker. Continue with your half double crochets until you reach your first stitch marker. I've reached my stitch marker, so I'm going to chain 4 now. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's because I have marked 4 stitches across. If you have marked 3 stitches across, then chain 3. After this step, we're going to look for the next stitch after the next stitch marker. Wrap your yarn around and put a half double crochet into that next stitch. So it should look something like this. You can see a slit has formed for our button. Let's continue on and put a half double crochet in until you reach the very last stitch marker. And in that last stitch, we're also going to put in a half double crochet to end our row. We're almost at the end. Once you've flipped your work, we can start as we usually do, so chain 2. Wrap your yarn around, and in the next stitch, we're going to put a half double crochet. Because this is our very last round, you don't need to worry about marking our most recent stitch with a stitch marker. Then I can see I have reached my chain that bridges across. So what I plan to do is to put 4 half double crochets across this chain. I'm not going to try to force my hook into these small spaces. Instead, what I'm going to do is start by wrapping your yarn around. Insert your hook underneath this chain. Then we're going to wrap your yarn around and pull through and just complete off the half double crochet. That's our first half double crochet. Let's do 3 more. And of course, if you only have a chain that's going 3 across, then you only need to put 2 more half double crochets in. Now for the remaining stitches for the rest of the row, we're going to put a half double crochet in each stitch. So once you've double crocheted to the other side, we're going to chain 1. Then we can cut our yarn here. And we're just going to pull our yarn against our hook and tighten with our fingers. And I'm going to take all my stitch markers out at this point. I'm now going to weave in these ends very similarly to how I weaved in my other ends. So I'll meet you after that. After that step, you can see our lovely pouch is almost done. All we need to do is one last step, which is to add our button. So grab your button of choice. And so with your lid closed, where the slit is, gives you an idea of where you want to place the button beneath it. So around here is where you want to sew in your button. Ideally, a sewing needle or yarn needle is best, but my yarn needle is too big for my button, so I'm going to have to do this caveman style. So just using my fingers and brute force. Of course, there are more eloquent ways to do this, so I'll find a tutorial for attaching a button with your yarn, and I'll link it up the top for your reference. But basically what I did was I threaded my yarn through the button and I cut my yarn off. Then I threaded into an adjacent hole and I attached the button to the rest of my work like this. And I kept weaving my yarn through my button and the rest of my work until it was nice and securely attached. I ended up having my yarn tails on the inside of my work, which I tied together multiple times. When I was happy with how secure it was, I cut the yarn tails off. And here's what our finished pouch looks like. I'm so proud of you for getting to the end. Some parts were definitely trickier than others, but you made it. Please don't be shy to leave a comment. I love hearing about how you went. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll see you next time.